going on. We've had some recent announcements in Newporte, generated some buzz in the community. Thought it was a good idea to come back and check in with the community so you know what's happened since then, what's going on, and what our plans are for the future. So, little order of business. I want to do a quick roll call. This is a public meeting on several boards. So those members of the council that are here, would you raise your hands for me? Okay, so we have Miles Fettinger, Tim Staples, Joe Mazinski, Laura Cutler. All right. Board of Works, we have Mayor. Do you have anybody else on Board of Works? All right. From the Redevelopment Commission, would you raise your hands? We have John Bertram, Brian Chalik, and Tim Larson. And from the Park Board, we have Nicole Messacar and Sylvia Smith. All right, done. So, we're going to go backwards, get an overview, provide some context for this whole project. So what you're looking at right now is a map that shows plats and maybe some topography of the lake. So this is Clear Lake, and you'll see that it's a lot bigger than it is now. I'm going to come around and point. So this is kind of the Clear Lake as we know it. This is not. This is no longer Clear Lake. This is approximately where Pine Lake Avenue comes through, and this is where Newport Landing is. So it was lake. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what it took to build on this site and what it takes to redevelop this site. Another bit of interesting trivia, there used to be it's a ferry, right? A ferry that would travel from Clear Lake, and you see that they were all connected, and it could get from Clear Lake through Stone into Pine Lake. So that was pretty cool. Maybe someday we'll have that again. So moving forward, this is a photograph from 1930. This would be just before Alzheimer's purchased the Advanced Early Thresher Code. You'll see here that the buildings are massive. Those of you that have lived in Newporte, you remember these buildings, the footprint that they have. And knowing that they were built on what formerly was lake, there's a lot of fill that was needed in order to make those lakes something that they could build on. And the foundations are massive because they're heavy buildings and they're on not ideal soil conditions. So that's something that we'll come back to, that we, as we do redevelopment, the soil conditions and then the fill that was used in order to be able to build on it is something that we're having to remediate in many cases. All right, so this is a photograph from 1986. So the Newport Works, major employer, closed the plant in 83. And also as a reminder, so it was almost 100 years at the site with very minimal environmental oversight. So that kind of provides some context to what we're dealing with today. So between 1989 and 2014, we had some movement in what is now starting to look more like the Newport Landing that we know. So we had kind of a shopping center built in 1989. We created the downtown TIF in 1990. And in 2005, the TIF was expanded to include this area of Newport Landing. That's important because that gives money specifically to invest back in this geographic area for redevelopment. So that's the purpose of TIF, and that's what we've been using primarily to fund the redevelopment of this area. So also in this time period, there were at least 29, I think there's probably more, environmental reports done on specific sites throughout Newport Landing. So those are a variety of different types of reports, mainly something called a phase 1 and a phase 2 environmental site assessment, And those kind of give you a broad and then a more detailed picture of the types of work that you're going to need to do in order to redevelop a certain area of land. There are also many demolitions that happen, and those are primarily from the 2000s up until 2014. So this is just a little picture of what we saw not too long ago in Newport Landing. So in 2016, we completed the infrastructure that included sewer, water, roads, stormwater infrastructure, trail, sidewalks, and landscape. So this, all of this was packaged together, and a great deal of environmental testing, and then remediation was done to get the area right here in a condition that is ready for development. We worked with Indiana Brownfields to get what's called a site status letter, and that's kind of your ticket to being able to use the site. You have their permission, you're all ready to go, and set up environmental restrictive covenants for the developable parcels. So environmental restrictive covenants are kind of rules about what you need to do when you build on a site. And they're different based on the conditions of the site and what you intend to do with the site. So I want to give kind of the overall history here in one slide. And what we're looking at is starting in 1930. And of course, there was the Newporte works on this site before 1930, but for the sake of brevity here, we're starting at 1930. And then it continued that way for quite a while until 83 when it closed. Pine Lake Shopping Center. Then we start doing the environmental reports. And so really, when you look at it this way, there's been a real flurry of activity in the last 30 years, and even more so in the last 5. So it's just important to remember on projects like this that the timeline is long. We have to have patience. Things are happening, and we're moving in the right direction. So Newporte is special, but in regards to brownfield redevelopment, just like every in the United States that is dealing with this, and believe me, every other city is. Anybody who's doing redevelopment is dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with here. So there are, we are using the best practices, we are using highly qualified consultants and people that have a lot of experience doing similar things throughout the region and the nation. So we talked about context time-wise. I kind of want to place this geographically because I think it's really important. Why is Newport Landing important? Like, why are we bothering with all of this effort, all of this money that we're spending, all of this time? Because it is in the heart of Newport. It's right here. It's between our lakes. It's between our largest parks. It's adjacent to our historic downtown. We have our multi-use trail. Our first multi-use trail under construction right now comes right through the center of this area and will continue on through the downtown and connect our community that way. So some of the finest features of Newport all come together in Newport Landing. So even though it is a lot of work to do this and a lot of time and a lot of money, it is worth it. So this is our vision for Newport Landing. Kind of overall, we're turning
about
this
halfway.
brownfield site. Thank you, Don. There we go. So this is our vision for Newport Landing. And I'll just kind of explain the colors we have here. Green shows what's going to be park. Blues is intended for mixed use. The yellow is showing commercial development. We have our open water here. And then the gray is showing the existing commercial and industrial uses. So Newport Landing is a brownfield, and the definition of a brownfield is any area that has actual or perceived environmental contamination, okay? So it doesn't have to be actually, impaired environmentally. In some cases, it is, and we're gonna talk about that. We know that there's a lot to deal with there, but it's not homogeneous. Not the whole site is the same. So you have to do the studies, and you have to treat the site in a way that you're going to deal with the areas that need it, and then not spend your time and effort on the areas that don't. So it is going to be an extension of the downtown, and we also hope that it can be an educational tool for remediation and restoration of former brownfields. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick Minnick, our city engineer, and he's going to get more in depth on the vision and also our what we've done environmentally so far.
We're gonna break this into essentially two parts. So we're gonna look at zone 1, which is really what everybody has seen be already constructed, in zone 2, which is what we're looking at in the closer to near-term future. So if you look at zone 1, that's the area that we've also called phase 1. This area is essentially between Pine Lake Avenue, Truesdale, Newport Boulevard, and then Clear Lake Boulevard. Clear Lake Boulevard is the extension of the former Clear Lake Boulevard that now comes all the way over to Truesdale. Zone 2 is everything from Clear Lake Boulevard to Clear Lake between Truesdale and essentially the south end or the Norfolk Southern Railroad, kind of that area in there. So where are we? Zone 1. We've further broken these out into two different parcels because of how we acquired them and previous ownership. So in zone 1, we have the Pine Lake Avenue parcels, which is everything from the former Chessie Railroad towards Pine Lake Avenue. We've done our environmental investigation. The infrastructure is complete. We've applied for a site status letter through the Indiana Brownfields program. The Indiana Brownfields program is a program with the Indiana Finance Authority. The outcome of their program is there's 3 outcomes, but the main 2 are either site status letters or comfort letters. A site status letter essentially says, this is the status of your site, and these are the uses that would be appropriate there. A comfort letter takes it another direction and is to the actual owner saying, you did not contribute to the issues at your site, and you can use it for said use. So generally, if you're redeveloping a site, you would go for a site status letter because you don't know who's going to purchase the property, and it offers kind of the best route to what we would consider regulatory closure. So regulatory closure is that point where the regulatory agencies are no longer going to have use of the property as they indicate. So we've applied for our site status letter. We didn't see a lot of activity on that corner, so we haven't done some additional confirmation sampling necessary. Once we do that, they could provide us with that letter. The second and larger portion of phase 1 or zone 1 is a large piece of the Burma property, and then also a small piece of what we would have called the Pine Lake Ave parcels, but we call it Burma. That center section has a site status letter. That site status letter is Indiana Brownfield program, essentially saying we are good to use that property for commercial uses. That is essentially the standard for redevelopment, and that's what that's what folks look for when they're looking at a site. If there is a site status letter, or if there is a comfort letter, or if there was another type of closure document, that's what they would want in order to be able to finance and develop the site. So we did receive that letter in 2016. It attaches an environmental and restrictive covenants to the property. And that's what's allowing us to move forward with commercial development on that. So, Zone 2, we have also areas. We did this because we did all of the background kind of sampling, but what we determined was in order to do it in one chunk, it would have been too costly. So we further broke it down, and we have what we consider the former Blaylock property, part of the Burma, and then what's called the West Basin, and there'll be a map of this shortly. We anticipate remediation starting at the end of this year and going through the middle of next year for this portion of the property. And then we anticipate redevelopment of this property to begin in 2019. Zone 2B is more on the long-term public ownership side. So there isn't a lot of developable property in what we would call Zone 2B, and that includes the East Pond, Polewalker Drive, and the western edge of Clear Lake. So none of those areas are really ideal for development. One of the reasons being is all the boards present who've been involved have really shown a strong commitment to making sure that the entire shoreline of Clear Lake is accessible to the public. So everything that we have on the boards and on the maps, we really want to make sure that we're enhancing the public's ability to access and recreate adjacent to Clear Lake. So, a little breakdown, because this is the meat of what we're doing right now, and kind of what's taking us to the next level. Zone 2A, the West Basin. So what you're looking at is the shoreline of Clear Lake in 1930, 1951, and 1970. In 1930, there were essentially two long ponds with one kind of causeway between the center of those ponds. As Alice Chalmers developed, they slowly filled in those ponds. What we call the East Pond is one of the last remnants of the original Clear Lake that extended all the way over to Lily Lake. What we call the West Basin really ended up being a stormwater basin for Alice Chalmers during their operations. So we see some different types of issues with the West Basin versus the East Pond. And I think one thing to really note is as they filled this in 1970, you see that the West Pond or West is much shorter. There was some material placed on the north end of that we're going to have to deal with. That's a pretty big concern. So we'll get into that in a little bit. So we have done sampling of the Zone 2A, and we found this. We lovingly call the orange sludge. So the orange sludge is actually what we believe waste material from Alice Chalmers painting operations, and it was disposed of just north of the West Basin. We've done extensive sampling, and we have defined exactly where this area is, and we know exactly what the limits of this dumping were. And then you look at other areas, and the soil it's clean. It's predominantly urban fill, as it was all fill material. Some of that's sand, some of that's import material from other places in Newporte. Some of that was maybe brought in on train, and it could be slag or a combination of other things too. So we're not going to shy away from the fact that we have this beautiful orange sludge that we're working on dealing with. You can see all the sample locations. We have done extensive sampling at the site, and we have a very, very good understanding of what we're working with. From this information, we were able to look at kind of this area as one unit and develop a remedial plan. So our plan for remediation is a combination of things. Some areas are well suited to have just the top layer scraped off and removed. Some need excavation 2 to 6 feet. Some need excavation 1 to 2 feet. But if you see this map here, these are the different areas. So this is the west basin that we're looking at filling. The sediment at the bottom of the west basin is impacted, and one way that we can remediate this is through a cap. And then you see we actually have 2 nodes of that orange sludge material. So what we're looking at doing here, in our original request item, we were looking at removing that material. It's considered hazardous waste, so we would mix it with another material, not as hazardous waste. So essentially, we would render it not hazardous and then take it to a landfill, and that's one way to save some cost and by treating it before it goes to the landfill. There are 2 other remediation options that we've looked into. We're still in negotiations with IDEM, so we may consider those options, and those would be a combination of treatment and leaving portions of that material on site once it's treated and no longer hazardous. Or also there's an option to solidify and stabilize the material. So those are yet to be determined, but right now what we're looking at is removal. So we will continue to work with IDEM on that. We submitted this conceptual remediation plan, which is this short document here. So I think it's a lot easier to understand this than a document like this. We submitted this to IDEM. They have reviewed the document and they've issued us some comments. We're working through those comments. One of those comments is a site-wide groundwater monitoring program, which we will implement to ensure that the work we've previously done, the work we're doing, so we don't see any contamination kind of moving out from the area. So just a little drawing. So here's a cross section of the area that includes both the orange sludge, shall we, and the west basin. So you see in the west basin the red dots. Those red dots indicate a sediment that's impacted, and then you see all the sample locations here that also have red in them, and that indicates the areas that we found the waste material. So excavation and stabilization of that area and backfill of this area. So I mean, we worked with a very good consultant, Geosyntec. Geosyntec has a great reputation and very, very professional group of geologists and environmental engineers and civil engineers that have helped develop kind of the most cost-effective solution to be able to reuse the site. In addition, we will be looking to fill that basin. As such, we will have to mitigate for it. So the areas around the basin are considered a wetland, so we would have to mitigate. We're looking at using the Kankakee Sands Mitigation Bank. We have gotten approval from both IDEM, verbal approval from both IDEM and Army Corps, that because of the low quality of wetlands that are here, because it's the less than desirable material we're talking about, we normally would have to mitigate at a higher ratio, but we can mitigate at a 1-to-1 ratio because the quality of the wetland is not great. So like I said, West Basin really has more impacts than the East Pond, so that's why we're looking at trying to really get this area to a place where it's better for the community overall. So next step, we will address item comments for the remedial work plan. We will submit wetland mitigation permits to Army Corps and IDEM. We're looking to begin remediation probably winter 2018, and then we'll look at doing additional restoration in what we were calling Zone 2B, which is the areas kind of outside. Sometime between 2019 and 2021 is generally where we're looking at doing that. So how do we pay for this?
So we'll stick with our Zone 1 and Zone 2. So Zone 1 is the area that you can see from Pine Lake, Pine Lake Avenue. So from 1996 to 2009, we utilized many federal Brownfield grants to do the phase 1 and phase 2 reports. In 2015, we did a bond through the Redevelopment Commission. It was a large bond, and we spent about $8 million on the environmental, stormwater, and infrastructure work in that area. We also utilized some insurance recovery funds and some TIF funds. Zone 2 is the shoreline and the area up to Clear Lake Boulevard. We are utilizing some of the same sources. In addition, we are looking at revolving loan funds, stormwater utility, any sort of grants we can get that are related to parks, because we are creating parks, urban enterprise zone, city funds, private partnerships with Healthcare Foundation, and developer contributions. So we're always open to new funding sources. We want to be exhaustive as possible. We need to be, because this is expensive work. And we had to hit up some of these because, you know, we see what's on Facebook. We hear through the grapevine what people are saying. So we just want to back and forth. Okay, number one, nothing is happening. Well, I think I addressed that. Look at the whole timeline of this. Granted, you're not seeing a lot of vertical development right now, since we've made that major input in the infrastructure, but there are things happening. Some of it is confidential, some of it has already happened, and a lot of it is just kind of underground, and it's testing, and it's very smart people working on plans to make sure that it's safe for reuse. It's a super fun site.
It is not a Superfund site. Superfund is a specific regulation. It's called CERCLA, and it was created to fund the worst of worst sites. It created the national priority list, and those sites took money from industry, put it into a super fund, and then they divvied it out to the worst sites. This is not one of those sites. This is something very different. It's a former industrial site that has environmental challenges, and we're working with our regulatory agencies to correct those challenges.
It's your garden variety brownfield, not a super fund. So it will never be clean.
I actually have a hat from a Brownfield conference I went to almost 10 years ago, and it says, "Don't lick the dirt." So it's clean, yes, but don't lick the dirt. So what we do, and what is done in development is risk-based closure of sites. So this is based in the science of biology, chemistry, heavily in toxicology, epidemiology. It looks at what are the potential sources of people interacting with the site. That may be dermal contact, that may be ingestion, that may be a number of things. And then who are those people? Is it a residential area? Is it a commercial area? Are they construction workers that will be excavating in the area? From that, they've developed a very, very, very detailed document and how you need to get to, say, a site that can be used for residential or a site that can be used for commercial. So those are the numbers, and that's the data we use to get to where we're at. Are we going to have a greenfield site in the middle of the city of Newporte? Absolutely not. Are communities that have industrial development going to have greenfield sites in there? Absolutely not. I actually just saw an article that Valparaiso University is adding an environmental engineering degree because they see, I think it's something like a 6% increase in environmental engineering jobs. We are not alone in needing to redevelop a former industrial area. So that's what we're working on. It will never be a greenfield, but that doesn't mean it's not acceptable for reuse for certain things.
So for instance, the orange sludge, it might have a parking lot over it. And that would be a good way that
Even if it's treated,
If
it may
it's
have a
treated,
parking lot over
you're
it.
still going to not have contact with it. The other sites where you can have green space, you can roll around on the grass. Would you want to eat the dirt? No.
No, you shouldn't
So-
eat dirt anyway.
Yeah. You can't drive around Clear Lake anymore. Not on the same roads that you used to, but you'll be able to do something better. You can get even closer to the water on our trails and on our multi-use loop trail around Clear Lake that will go around the entire lake at some point.
And with the loop trail around Clear Lake that provides safe access for the lake for pedestrians and cyclists and anyone who wants to access it, not inside their car. We have several parking areas with Clear Lake Boulevard reconstruction. We put 2 parking areas and we have a third one planned, and there's 2 more parking areas we have planned for future development. So we don't want to stop people from driving to Clear Lake and enjoying it. We want to make sure that it's still planned and designed so that you can sit in your car and have lunch and look at the beautiful water. But we also want to make sure that we're creating something that can be a real asset to our community and to our downtown, and can kind of take us to the next level as far as how we interact with a really great natural resource within our community.
Speaking of that natural resource, Clear Lake, is it a lost cause?
It is definitely not a lost cause. It is a lake around former industrial areas, but
Now, we do have restrictions on what type of fish you should eat out of it. A lot of lakes in the region do, Lake Michigan, Stone Lake does. So you should always check the consumption advisories that are out by item,
Health department.
the state health department. Thank you, Mark.
it is not something the city does. It's not within our jurisdiction to put out a fish consumption advisory.
But it is there. Now Newport is too dirty for residential uses. It depends on how much money you want to spend to clean it up and what type of residential use you're gonna build. So,
And where it is in the development.
and where it is in the development specifically. So maybe there's some areas that it's not worth getting to a level that you would build homes on it. And we won't build homes there, but we will build places for people to live where it makes sense.
And a lot of that's also looking at trying to be good stewards of the community's resources. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to clean the entire thing up to a residential standard if 1, homes aren't going to be built on it, people aren't going to live there. And 2, there's areas of the site that are not ideal for residential. So to clean them up to that standard would be costly, and it's just not a good use of public resources to do so. So it's a balance of figuring out, what is your end use and what's at the site and how you can get to a large redevelopment project that has a positive impact on the community.
And lastly, deals fell through because the site is too contaminated. Nobody has left because they couldn't deal with what was there. We've been very upfront with folks and helped them through issues when they find, for instance, when Starbucks was developing, there was some telephone poles and stuff that were underground. We didn't know that they were there. And we worked with the developer to help get them so that the community would have our Starbucks. So this is really absolutely it. All right, so our vision for Newport Landing. So you saw this before, and I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail about it. What you're seeing is our loop around Clear Lake. So this is Holocker, and we're envisioning a opening up of the what here is very thick fill, so that the water from Clear Lake can flow into this, which Nick is called Fox Harbor.
I haven't made that official decision. That's up to one of the boards here will make that decision, I'm sure.
It's just a suggestion. And so some parkland here, so increasing the access for pedestrians, for cyclists, for anybody that wants to get up and enjoy what is here in Clear Lake and the parks that we'll be creating. Some boardwalks so you can really get into the lake. We have finished right now the new Clear Lake Boulevard and trail that goes all the way here from the Clung to this area. The parking areas are here, and there'll be more planned to access the park areas. This here is the area where Flaherty and Collins has proposed the multi-use residential development. And we envisioned that we could do more of this similar types of projects in this area and here. And all the yellow shows where there is proposed commercial development. Is there anything else?
Some kind of ancillary projects that we're hoping that move forward just from my standpoint as the engineer looking at transportation and other things. We show on here a connector from Park Street or Tipton back into Newporte. So we would have a one-way pair and have the NIPSCO property be very developable and useful for something. The other thing we show is in the future, we're very interested in having Polk Street extended through. This is a project that's been considered for a very, very long time. What that does is it allows for the AC Trust parcel to continue to see development as well. Going back to the myths, we did not do any surface water sampling in Clear Lake. We did 4 surface water samples, 3 of which were in the East Pond, 1 of which was in the West Basin. Those surface water samples did not have any exceedances for the US EPA's recreational risk screening level. So when people say it's such a dirty lake, it's just, that's not really accurate based on the information we have. Granted, the information we have are for the 2 ponds next to Clear Lake, which are smaller and have less turnover than Clear Lake. So we see this as a great opportunity to really increase access and recreation and get people out and active and healthy and moving and create an environment where people want to be and want to enjoy, and tying that to our beautiful historic downtown. We think that the city has a great future with the continued development of Newport Landing.
So just to hit some highlights, commercial development that we've seen already. We have our coffee corner, and there's other commercial development in the works, but at this point, it's confidential, okay? So we have to have patience, and I know that's hard.
And it's not confidential because we don't want to share. One, I don't even know most of the confidential stuff, but it's confidential because if a company comes in and wants to invest in your community and they don't want other companies to know exactly what they're doing, their business plan and their business model, they don't want the community to go and announce things and let everybody know what's happening. So really it's for those companies that are interested in locating here and investing in our community. We're not trying to keep anything from anyone.
And that is private sector driven, which I think is another misconception, that the city can decide that we decided we were going to have a Starbucks, we decided we're going to have a Dunkin', and we'll decide to have this, that, and the other. They have to come to us. They have to want to locate here. Bert does a great job making the assets that we have known and available, and doing what we can to lure folks into Newport Landing and the community as a whole. But it is very driven by the private sector. So the residential mixed use development. So This is a luxury apartment that is anticipated to be ready to lease in 2021. The developer is Flaherty and Collins. They have a local and national experience developing a variety of sites, including ones with environmental issues, other brownfield. We anticipate this to be a catalyst for a lot of other development in Newport Landing and truthfully throughout the community. We think it will be a real good shot in the arm for Newport. So it's over $35 million of investment, and we anticipate that a redevelopment bond will cover about 17% of the project cost. And of that 17%, about half is going to be paid back through the increment that this project generates through the taxes it pays. So the redevelopment commission and the city as a whole is participating in this project because we believe that it is really important for the city of Newport.
But the majority of the investment is private investment.
But private investment, also some investment at the state level.
And the 17% from the redevelopment is primarily going to be used for the cleanup of that site, which has been contaminated over 100 years ago. So the redevelopment commission is not giving them, the developer, any money. We're just cleaning up what was left in the land, which has to be cleaned up anyway.
Well, there is, of course, there's a good deal of cleanup that the city would do, whether or not this developer would build the 200 units. And then there is the cost of the development as a whole. So, and recreation. This is, I just feel really excited about what we're going to have in Newport Landing. So this shows kind of a big picture of what kind of recreation is going on in the region. We have the Chessie Trail, so that's under construction right now. The crews are out, and it starts at Quantico Lane Park, goes along East Shore Parkway, and then uses the old Chessie rail corridor to get down to Truesdale Avenue, where it connects in with the trail that was already built in Newport Landing. And then we're in the engineering phase of phase 2. Oh, that's not showing correctly. There we go, that's better. So the second leg of Chessie is gonna go 2 routes. So we have the main route that will kind of go next to Lily Lake and come down Tyler, and then go down First and meet up with the old Chessie corridor. And then we have the business route that will take the enhanced overpass. So NDOT's going to be doing some improvements to the Indiana Avenue overpass in 2020.
FY 2020. Maybe beginning
It could be
next fall.
Okay, so it could begin as early as next fall. And there will be a trail on the east side of the overpass. And then it will connect in along Lincoln Way with the main trail. We have the trail built from this location all the way to McClung. Eventually, there will be trail that goes all the way around the lake, and it will connect in with Chessie. And this is just going to be a tremendous asset for Newport Landing and for the community as a whole. So we have active and passive recreation along the shores of Clear Lake. We have the boardwalk, trailheads. We have other types of recreation like the Dunes Event Center, and we're going to encourage other recreation-focused development in the area. So if you want to know more, we're going to take questions here for a while, and whatever we don't get to, you contact us. Here's our information, and my cards are here, but we'd like to just take questions from the crowd. If you raise your hand.
We're trying to limit it to, a minute or two, trying to be cognizant of everyone's time and turning our up around probably 7 o'clock.
without spilling the beans, can you give some sense to the public, our citizenry here, about how we do make decisions when certain retailers, et cetera, approach us that, you know, as far as the vision for Newport Landing, we have design standards that we want to upscale and improve before, you know, no to you, but yes to you. What, speaking on more general terms, how is that handled by RDC? Maybe Dallas, the talk there, maybe the city planning, I don't know. But I think it's a question to at least discuss the broad parameters up to enhance trust and an understanding amongst the public, because there is a lot of gossip about, you know.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit, and I'll maybe let Bert take a shot at it too. So, we do have a vision for an elevated use in Newport Landing. So there are some offers that have been rejected. We don't want a lot of what we have all over the port. So maybe we don't want somebody that's next door to pop on over. Maybe we want, don't want a bunch of, I don't know.
It's kind of a running joke with Holiday Properties, our master developer. We defined a list of things that maybe wouldn't suit Newport Landing well. And one of those is limiting the number of mattress stores, because in a lot, you'll see commercial developments with 5 mattress stores, and you wonder, is that really serving the community well? So maybe we have kind of that vision of we don't want just kind of the same thing over and over again throughout the development. We'd like to see a lot of opportunity for citizens of LaPorte to shop and have services provided.
That is direction that has come to the staff from the redevelopment commission. And so there are some uses that are inappropriate, we feel, in Newport Landing. But we are open to a variety that kind of elevate the community. Does that answer your questions, Shelley? Do you have anything to add?
Well, I would just say, Councilman Stamos, the other thing to keep in mind is the redevelopment commission is the mechanism that our state legislature gives us to, you know, facilitate development like this. You have appointees from the council, appointees from the mayor's office. So, you know, there's a qualifying period that kind of occurs, vetting offer, make sure that the parameters, as Nick and Beth kind of referenced, that at least somewhat meet the overall plan for the development, and then we look to the redevelopment commission to help decide how we move forward.
I know, I don't understand the whole philosophy about building tenants and so on and so forth. And I know there was some discrepancy about where we're going to build, and it's going to ship from here to go there and back over here. My only comment would be, and I know the horse is out of the barn and running pretty hot and heavy here. I know that Holiday Properties, I believe, put the property up on Cleveland Avenue. There's the Chrysler dealership in Michigan City. They worked on it for a year to get it built, and it's been sitting for a long time uninhabited, no tenants. I personally think that if we build without securing tenants, it's not a very good idea, because what we have is a site for 3 years now that's been bare, and everybody in the community is wondering about it. And now we're starting to say, well, maybe we should build the buildings. We don't secure the tenants. Now we got the other problems of looking at Cleveland Avenue saying, they built that a year ago, there's still nobody in there. What's the matter with this town? So I know it's late, but that's just something that, kind of bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, no, I specifically our relationship with Holiday, the kind of development as a whole, we have to be flexible in our.
It doesn't require an answer.
Well, just to say, we have gone back and forth on what we think is going to work the best. And part of that is kind of responding to the market.
From the initial design of the infrastructure in Newport Landing, it was designed for flexibility. So it was designed for when we had a purchase agreement with Kroger had some financial changes, they no longer move forward with the project. it fit a big box type development. Now, was that the right development for us? We don't know. It's not happening right now anyway. But the way that the infrastructure is laid out, it really suits the market dictating what goes into the development. But without the infrastructure in place, there's no marketing to be done. So we've kind of gotten it to a point where now we can let our developers and Budsy work on finding the right fit and making sure it's in the right location and making sure that we don't have big buildings.
And I think it's safe to say right now, there isn't a spec building plan currently. I know we had been contemplating that as a direction, but I think right now there's no plan to build a spec building.
July 13th in the local newspaper, I believe, Mayor Krentz mentioned something, they quote him in passing, something about connecting all the lakes through channels later. This was at the Women's Voters League, I recall. You sort of mentioned some things that look like you could be leading towards that.
Yeah, we're not there. We've worked on a concept that could potentially connect the lakes. It's very costly, and before we would want to put something out in the public, if we're going to connect our lakes, we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and make sure that it's one, possible, and two, financially viable, and then we kind of move from there. So we don't currently show that in our plan for Newport Landing. Not saying that this is the final plan for the entirety of redevelopment in downtown Newport. So we could see some different things happening, and I think it would be an asset to our community to have an amenity like that.
Would
The
this,
canals that you're talking about, that's actually one of the projects listed in the original documents that set up the redevelopment area that Newport Landing's in. So that has been listed on as a project, and it's been on the radar.
Do you know when that was?
So the expansion was done in 2005. And I'm not sure if that was included in the expansion or in the original document, which was 1990. So it's.
The original alignment was the original alignment for that canal was bringing it down on the south side of the shopping center and under the overpass and over to Wood Lake. There's been a lot of kind of development in that area. I don't think that's a viable alignment at this point. So we'd have to look at some other alternatives.
I'm just curious if it's anything like my LaPorte Loop idea that I met with the city planner and I've spoke quite extensively to the vice president of the Parks Department about, because I've looked into this quite some time to see if it's been on the radar or planned. I can't find anything on it. I seem to be the person that thought about it, and I met with representatives of the city, and now it seems like you guys are about to do a $50 million deal on it. So if somebody could provide me with something where this happened before, I met with the city about it, and she tells me quite extensively that it's a brilliant idea that she didn't know nothing about at the time. There was no radar. But for any developers, my name is Christopher Throgmorton, and I'm now your problem should this proceed with my idea. So
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
Anyone else? Yes.
I just want to thank you for completing the project in the Kroger parking lot.
Oh.
That is now not the cluster that you want to have
Yes.
around. Thank you for that.
Uh,
And then also the residences that you're building is really going to address the problem that we had in our community of not having residents. So not only as the chair of the retention safety committee for the chamber, when I meet with companies, the top three things are workforce, fiber, which we'll address, I'm sure, in the future, and residences for the people that we are trying to bring into our community to work the jobs that we need to have them work. And there aren't those. So between this and development of the avenues, I think it's going to address and move our community forward in the direction that we are really trying to go. So thank you very much for both of these things.
And just so you know, we did contemplate things like fiber in the original development. So we have that is something that we've considered also.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry I'm late. I apologize. My name's Gene Goldberg, and I have been a member of the Redevelopment Commission for 15 years, through many administrations. And I would like to thank first and the two people you see up there for the energy they put forward on trying to get some tenants in here and work very hard. Worked hard to bring the apartment complex in here. Now we have to float the bond issue down the road, but the efforts through the phase twos and a lawsuit that we were able to accomplish through the Ellis Commons Trust, that brought $2.5 million into our hands to be able to use for generating this project. All I saw a long time ago was buildings, smokestacks, and dirt. And they've done a great job. These two people here, Bert in particular, Beth and Nick and Bert, have done a great job trying to move us forward. And all the members of the redevelopment commission who have spent a lot of time with their ideas, thoughts, talking to people in the community. Previous members of the redevelopment commission and the new members now. This will turn out to be a great project. I know it's gonna take time, but I've gone through 15 years of it. And look what we have now, 15 years ago. Doesn't seem like too long ago, but there's some progress being made. And there's some other good things on the table that you're not aware of or know about that will happen. So, thumbs up to the staff.
Sounds like you're on the
They spent $8 million to say don't eat the dirt.
If you do have questions, our phone numbers and email are on here. We'll be happy to.
So in short, we spent $8 million to tell you not to eat the dirt. What's up? $8 million, don't eat the dirt, the rest is confidential. Fucking joke. Oh my God. Well, that was about a waste. I done read all that. And I printed it out and shit. I thought they was going to tell me something new.
I thought you were going to tell me what's happening to the water in Cleveland.